Who? So Wayne, if you can hear me. All right, as we wait for Thuwain, we can go to Linus Oyugi Otieno.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linus Oyugi, as you've heard. I'm a clinical psychologist at Chiromo Hospital Group, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Linus. Now, here I'm spoiled for choice. I don't know if I start with Dr. Nyamiobo or Dr. Okari. Dr. Nyamiobo, karibu.
I think they say ladies first, so I don't know what you are assuming. But my name is Dr. Joseph Nyamiobo. I'm a corporate psychiatrist at Chiromo Hospital Group, currently based at Bustani branch, and I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Dr. Okari.
Yes, so this is Dr. Okari Ochotea, Nyali Mombasa. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
There is one person who is not appearing on the photos. Felix Omondi, karibu.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. As you have heard, my name is Felix Omondi. I'm a nurse at Chiromo Hospital Group, that is Nyali branch. I also double up as the branch manager. Thank you so much and welcome to today's forum.
Thank you, Felix. Last but not least, Robbins Mutai.
So good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Robbins Mutai. In Nyali, I'm in charge of client experience. Looking forward to the session.
Then the person who is doing the IT staff background, Justus.
Thank you, Patrick. I thought you said non-clinical. Me and Nyaga, we fall on the same category, but pleasure being around to assist. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Is Thuwain back?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you can introduce yourself and what you do and where you are.
Yes, so thank you. My name is Thuwain Mahmoud. I am a cognitive neuropsychologist, and I am currently based at Nyali and also some other hospitals. But thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to the talk.
Thank you very much. There is one special group of people that I also want to recognize before we start. That is the IHRM. Kama wewe unatoka IHRM, just send an emoji, a clap emoji or a thumbs up emoji. We really appreciate your partnership. Demonaka thumbs up. Thank you very much for that thumbs up. So as we all are aware, this month, the month of June, we are commemorating men's mental health. And this year's theme is Let's Talk, Support and Drive Change Together. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation from the panelists and including Jeremiah, because for too long we've been told to man up. We've been told to suppress and carry our burdens in silence. But the true strength is not found in isolation. As men, we are not supposed to be isolated, but it is forged in the connections that we have. Today, as we break the silence, we need to acknowledge that our mental health is just as vital as our physical health. As the doctors will tell us, there is no health without mental health. This is not about weakness, but it's about courage. As men, we are called to be courageous so that we speak our truth, we listen without judging, and we build courage for further engagements with men so that we are able to talk, we are able to support, and we are able to drive change together. So with this backdrop, I'll be setting some questions to our panelists for them to just give us a few insights on some issues touching on men's health, especially mental health. And to start us off, maybe Dr. Okari and Thuwain, you will see in which order. Maybe you will start with Thuwain. This particular statement, far too long, we've been told to man up, to suppress and carry our burden in silence. It really resonates with men. From your own perspective, Thuwain, how has this pervasive man-up culture fundamentally shaped man's perception of mental health challenges and their willingness to seek help, both in Kenya and maybe globally?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, for the interesting question. I believe it has long been here. This, you always have to man up, you're a man. These statements, I think, resonate with most men, including myself. And well, basically it shapes even from the way parenting is done, right? Even as we grow up, you know, parents will always focus on the boy child, neglecting his emotional needs more than the girl child, right? And with this now, you see this boy growing up into understanding that, okay, so maybe my emotions are not so important, maybe my feelings are not so important, maybe what I feel is not so important, and therefore he becomes, he learns how to develop this mask as he grows up, right? So he's putting on this mask that everything is fine, everything is good, but deep down, if they are struggling, then they don't seem to show it because they've learned over time and they've been told through the parenting that you don't matter, your feelings don't matter, your emotions don't matter. So what do we see now? What do we expect? We see an adult who is now emotionally numb, right, to other people's emotions, neglecting other people's emotions, including himself also sometimes. We see an adult who is trying his best to grapple with his mental health, but most of the times, or some of the times, sadly, they end up not being able to handle the situation. So basically, what we see now, we see this adult male who is now developing what we call maladaptive behaviors, right? So instead of now dealing with his emotions, he now seeks other sources um, of behaviors that will calm or understand, or sorry, numb whatever emotions or struggles that is going through. And hence we see now people who will tell you, oh, maybe, you know, alcohol is my best friend, maybe weed, you know, there's weed, all kinds of substances. Sometimes people become womanizers, right? That one is also sometimes a form of an addiction or an escape towards also what they deal with. So this is detrimental, of course. And as we will continue seeing, as we continue with the talk, maybe we'll also discuss some of the ways where we can handle all these issues. But for now, I think that is how this man up has resulted, and that is what has contributed to where we are right now as men in this society and world. Thank you. Maybe I can pass it on to Dr. Okari and he can give his insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thuwain. Maybe Dr. Okari, as you respond to that, you can also touch on some of these maladaptive behaviors and with special interest to even gambling, because the society says a man must provide, a man should provide. Dr. Okari?
Oh, thank you very much, Patrick, and my fellow panelists. Yeah, this is a very interesting topic. The whole concept of man up is more or less what has worked for the society. Yeah, so we should also try and see where this man up concept came from. So the whole man up concept was the man as the center. The man as the center of the family, the man as the center of the unit. Yeah, and which more or less is what we call traditional hegemonic masculinity, where the man used to take responsibility of socially and also emotionally, and used to be the core of the whole unit. So the whole thing about masculinity was very, very important for the survival of more or less the family unit, because at that in those days, like there was so much instability in terms of security, in terms of food security. So the man had to man up to be able to fill in the void. But what we see by manning up, it means that somebody has to become what we call stoic. In terms of stoicism, it means you have to suppress emotions. You have to mask emotions, because when you show emotions, it means you look vulnerable, you look weak. Yeah. So when you look weak, there's a level at which also, like, vulnerability leads to other issues. So the man had to come up with this man up culture. But what we are seeing is, in terms of mental health symptoms are showing in men in other ways. Like, we are seeing mostly depression, or even things like mood disorders. They're presenting themselves with like, men can become irritable, men can become aggressive, or men might end up to maladaptive behaviors such as substance use. Yeah, so this man-up culture has more or less become challenging in terms of how we are able to treat mental health, and in terms of the steps in which we are seeing men present with mental illness. So the masculinity culture usually encouraged dominance by strength, by power, by valor, by virility, by autonomy, by aggression, by mastery. Yes. But now we're seeing that mental health men will present with aggressive symptoms, which men will mask them. Men will mask them using either maladaptive coping or rather using high-risk behavior, so as to be able not to show weakness. The whole thing is detrimental, because the symptoms of mental health, which early signs might present with sadness, fear, and vulnerability, they end up being numbed down, or they end up being masked by these internalizing symptoms. So they might not, most of the men end up suffering in silence. And from the data which we are seeing, that more than 32%, statistics say more than 32% of the men are likely to seek mental health services in comparison to women, which might lead to adverse or severe outcomes by the time most of the men end up seeking services. They usually show themselves in a very, very severe state. And we are finding that also data here, when you look at the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, it says, with this reluctance of men seeking mental health, the data shows that up to 80% of the men, up to, like, the suicidal rates in Kenya, they're showing that up to 80% are actually men who have committed suicide. So with this kind of data, it shows that this concept of man-up culture is bringing about what we are seeing as like a silent epidemic in terms of what the data shows. Thank you, Patrick. Back to Patrick.
Thank you, Dr. Okari, for that elaborate explanation. And one thing is coming up very clearly about the data, especially the last data that you're giving from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, that up to 80% of completed suicide, it's men. What a worrying trend. So I'd like to up it a bit to Dr. Nyamyobo and Linus. What other societal or cultural expectations and pressures specifically affects men, their well-being and their likelihood to express vulnerability? We see men are not very vulnerable as compared to the women. So what are some of these pressures and expectations? Maybe Linus?
Oh, yeah, yes. Thank you, Patrick, for the opportunity. I'd like to first of all agree with what has been said by the first two panelists. When it comes to the question that you've asked, I mean, there could be a lot of things that are cultural in nature that are affecting men. I think most of what I had in mind, have already been said by Dr. Okari. But maybe just to emphasize on the traditional role of attaching a man's value to his ability to provide. I mean, the world has changed a lot since the 1960s. You know that prior to the 1960s, women were not very much involved within the workspaces. But right now, about 46% to 49% of the work space is occupied by women. So women have really been uplifted, and rightly so. I think has been the right thing to do, to make sure that equal opportunity is also accorded to 50% of the population, which is women. But women have made significant strides since the 1960s, but men, like every single statistic seems to be indicating that men are going backwards. So, for example, issues regarding the gender pay gap, we know that in most places of the world right now, men between the ages of 18 and
Linus,
35.
you're breaking.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
You can carry
Hello?
on.
Yes, so for example, studies have shown that
You
in
can
most parts
carry
of... Yes?
Carry on, we can hear you.
Okay. So saying that, for example, studies have shown that in most parts of the world, men between the ages of 18 and 35 are out-earned by their female counterparts. Of course, it's good now that women are having an equal opportunity within the workspaces. But when you're having one gender surpassing the other, and by far, you're creating a societal problem that might be a bit difficult to handle. For example, I'll just give you an example. We know this is scientifically through sociological research that women are generally only attracted to men that are at least as good as they are. So women tend to date across or upwards when it comes to social hierarchies. So when now men of the ages between 18 and 35 are being out-earned by their female counterparts, you're having men who really struggle within the dating market. And although the world has changed so much since the 1960s, where women are occupying nearly 50% of the workforce, men are still expected to be the primary breadwinner, and their worth is mostly tied to their ability to generate income and to fend for their family. And I think that's a bit problematic. I think we need to redefine the way that we see things, especially in this generation, because the economic situation is incredibly difficult, and men tend to be affected to a significant degree. Men are less likely to graduate from university. Men are even less likely to get a university admission. Men are more likely to be expelled or to even be held a year due to multiple reasons. And these are things, these are aspects that contribute to a man's ability to generate income. So when you have a significant portion of men really struggling to earn, to make a living, to compete with their female counterparts, then that's a sociological problem that needs addressing. So I think that's all I can say for now. Back to you. Patrick?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Linus, for bringing in now the comparison between the men and the women in terms of employability and bringing something on the table. Dr. Nyamiobo, what's your view about this question?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So, Dr. Okari and Twain have clearly outlined what the manning up concept is all about and masculinity. But other sociocultural issues may involve things like awareness. Most awareness campaigns are targeting the female gender, and also stigma around medication, for example. Fear that treatment may affect libido amongst men. That in itself is also something that we need to discuss. We also need to understand the problem around emotional suppression. So men, we are not in a situation or empowered to understand our emotional awareness and processing. So in a way, we suppress our emotions and we're not able to have a symptomatology clearly showed up. So we find that men primarily present with physical symptoms and end up presenting in a medical facility than coming to a mental facility. And if and when they finally come to a mental health facility, men end up finding that we can all bear witness that most of our mental health experts are female. So issues around poor rapport with providers that are female around men and men's inability to show that they are weak around the female healthcare providers. The other problem that may involve workplace culture, meaning that in the workplace, men are expected to, as Dr. Okari said, expected to show stoicism and also inadequate services. So generally not to men only, but to the whole general population that we lack access to mental health services as a country and as a population. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph. And as we continue with this particular conversation, there is a poll that has been sent to us. We can look at it. Feel free to have this conversation with yourself. Be very open so that we get to understand how to help Badai. Now, Thuwain, there's this statement, strength in connection. In practical terms, what does fostering genuine supportive connections look like for men today? Especially those who have been conditioned to be self-reliant.
Okay, thank you for that interesting question. Well, even when we do therapy, most of the times, we often start by addressing how people define situations and basically life matters, right? So, for example, for men, if you'd ask them, what does strength mean for them? Some of you will say maybe financial aspect. Some of you will say the health aspect. If I'm healthy, then I'm strong. If I'm financially well, then I'm strong. Some will tell you if I am in control, that means I am strong. So I think the biggest issue is now we need to redefine what strength means, right? Because it just doesn't mean enduring things alone. All right. So most of the times, men will believe that oh, we need to be, when I endure things alone, it means that I'm strong enough, I can do this. Well, that is a good aspect of keeping that mentality that yes, I am strong enough. You have these positive affirmations, but at the same time, seeking help is not a form of weakness, right? It's okay to seek for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. These are things that I think we should always be reminding ourselves, and the community should always be reminding the men that look, it's okay if you want to reach out. It's okay if you want to ask your buddies, hey, look, I had problem X last time. Have you ever experienced this before? What do you think about it? Right? And then you can share ideas, talk about it. Most of the times, somebody will have a problem, and even reaching out is an issue. So I think redefining strength is something important that we can look at. Number two, I think we should also shift from what we call shoulder to shoulder, right? Shoulder to shoulder talks, and then we need to shift to a face to face mentality. So if you see, if I don't know if you've noticed with women, most of the times you see women that they always have this face-to-face approach towards issues, where if a woman has an issue, she basically either phone FaceTimes or they plan a meeting and they sit face-to-face and they always talk about them and they're very close and everything. But with men, it's never that way. Men, we always take the shoulder-to-shoulder approach. So even in movies, even in real time, actually in bars and everything, you see that the stools are always aligned shoulder to shoulder. It's never face to face, right? And this is something that face to face creates that intimacy that we require, that to break down these barriers of showing sense of strength with one another. So we need to learn that. Okay, so people are no person is an island, right? So we are social beings. We need to interact. Men are not from Mars. I saw somebody here say that people talk to us as if men are from Mars. Yeah, men are not from Mars. Men are just humans, and we need to acknowledge that and be more kind to each other. Okay, so for example, just asking, for example, the other person. I remember there was a talk last time I was listening to, and the guy said they were seated in a group talking about life and everything. And by the time it was 4 a.m., just one of them reached out and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm going through a divorce right now. It's actually hurting me so bad." And the other three, I think, or two of them were like, "Hey, I'm in the same situation, man. It's really, really giving me a hard time." And the other one was like, "Actually, I think I'm going bankrupt." And these were guys who had started talking from the time they were, I think it was around 10 p.m. all the way to 4 a.m. And it's at 4 a.m. is when that conversation popped up. So you can see that how the kind of importance that we give to mental health talks and everything. So for all those hours, nothing came up until at 4 a.m. That is almost, I don't know, 2 + 4, 6 hours later. And that is when now the talk comes in on, "Hey, I think I'm struggling. Hey, I think." So you can see the kind of importance and the kind of talks that we have. So I think as men, we need to check in also for each other oftenly, because it's quite important. Another thing we also need to encourage is listening actively. So when people are talking, when somebody comes to you, as we mentioned before, it's not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength. So listen actively, right? So try to be there for that person. Okay, I see what you understand, or I see what you're going through. I think I've been through this. I think I've heard a similar story. I think this should help. I think that should help. I think you should see a mental health specialist. I think this requires us to, I think this requires you to take a break. So being actively there, listening actively to what the person is actually trying to communicate. So this um, uh, trying to be together and this sense of strength, right? Strength and connection. It's something that is important for us men. So what is vital is how we redefine strength, right? Redefining strength, I think once we redefine how we view strength, I think then as men we can now um, build much better and much more genuine connections that are based on authentic concern and care for one another. Thank you. I think that'll be all for me, Mr. Patrick. Thank you.
Wow, Dwayne, that's wonderful. Face to face as compared to shoulder. So the men in this call, let's try as much as possible to embrace the face to face rather than shoulder to shoulder. Dr. Nyamyobo, any tangible strategies to deepen these connections for men?
Yeah. First and foremost, we need to understand that we need to break the stigma. This, as you have said, we need to first encourage open communication, have such forums where we're able to talk and sit as men to destigmatize the fear that we are weak, and we need to understand that weakness is strength in itself. We also need to increase our education and awareness. So be it in the workplace, be it at home, be it in the media, social or print media or mainstream media, we need to continue having education and awareness programs. We need to get people with lived experiences amongst us men to come out and talk to the public, because we have seen females and women coming out with lived experiences and saying, "Hey, I had a depressive illness, or I had anxiety, or I had this and that I conquered it through this and this and this." So us as men need to also find a way to embrace that. We also might need to come up with support groups, be it, as we know, women come out and are able to support themselves either financially or mentally through having chamas. So do we have such support groups where we're able to form a way of meeting regularly and sitting down over tea, over coffee, over anything, and talking about our weaknesses and our strengths? And finally, just to challenge societal norms that men are from Mars. So we might be from Mars, they might be from Venus, but at the end of the day, we are on Earth. And now that we are on Earth, we need to now understand that society might expect us to man up, but we might also understand that we also have our weaknesses as human beings because we are not God. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, for that. Maybe just one more thing from Linus, then we go to the next bit. Linus, in like a minute, what is the role of family, the partners, and the society in terms of encouraging men to open up about their mental wellness?
Thank you, Patrick, for the good question. I think that the role of the family is both complex and simple. But it's simple because it's just the things that we do when we are interacting with any other person. You need to be patient with a man. You need to create a non-judgmental space where they can share without fear of being judged. I think one of the fears that men have, I speak to men a lot, is that when they share their issues, when they put out their dirty linen, it's actually being used against them. A good example is that the current Speaker of Kenya's National Assembly, there's a time when it came out that he was victim of physical abuse by his wife. And most of the people that are actually ridiculing him and criticizing him were men, and it's actually both genders. So we need to create safe, non-judgmental spaces where men can open up without fear of being judged. We need to listen to them without trying to offer solutions immediately. And I think one mistake that family members make is that you listen to a person, but you're not listening to them actively. You're actually trying to think of the next response that you're going to make. So listen without thinking of the response that you're going to make. I think you would know that as psychologists, about 98% of what we do in therapy is to listen. Listening is that important, is that effective. Listening, it's oftentimes is the first step to receiving help. And a simple, just letting them know that you're there for them whenever you need them, offering suggestions as to which places they could get help. Also, sometimes respecting the way that men tend to try to distress. Men tend to have more externalizing symptoms when they're struggling with mental health, like physical aggression, drug abuse, and so on and so forth. But even when they resort to healthy means of coping, they also tend to be externalizing in nature. Men are more likely to go to a gym to try to deal with a breakup. They're more likely to start a project like build something. So we should also respect the way that men choose to grieve. Talking is important, yes, and opening up is important, yes. But opening up and talking is not the only way of finding solutions, especially when it comes to men. Men choose to grieve differently. Men choose to deal with mental health issues differently. Men also need to feel useful in spaces where they exist. They need to get acknowledgement from their partners, and their partners and their friends and their family members need to elevate the things that are good about them. I'm sure that you guys have heard of statistics that we know that 50% of the entire population is male, but somewhere between 75% to 85% of all suicide cases are male. But studies have also found that somewhere between 37 to 67% of suicide cases among men are when men actually don't even have a history of mental health issues. So some men are actually resorting to suicide due to legitimate actual problems that it's nothing to do with mental health. Their life is a mess. They do not have any economic prospects. They don't have any romantic prospects, and they've come to the conclusion that my life is meaningless. And up to 67% of such cases, men do not even have a history of mental health issues. And men, what I found common about men is that they need to feel useful. They need to feel like they're needed. they need also to be respected, in as much as they should also accord the opposite gender and also other men around them with respect. They need to feel respected, and they also need to feel useful. I think that's how the family members and people around men can support them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Linus. I'm reading a comment from Peter Combo, and asema, men are men, we can't hide from it. Thank you, Peter, for that comment. Then we have Steve Oluoch. Here's to relationships inataka dawa. Are we better off single ama ndoa ni kuvumilia? Ponder that, gentlemen. Dr. Okari, I want to throw this question to you. What are the most effective strategies to encourage men to have open conversations, both within personal relationships and the broader community?
Also, thank you very much, Patrick. Just to, somebody has said men are for mass. Yeah. So the whole point here, it's not to feminize men. Okay? The whole point here is not to eliminate masculinity. The whole point here, we are trying to educate men on how what we call the harmful stereotypes of masculinity end up masking their mental health. So one of the ways we might get to, like, when men are put in a corner, one of the ways they should express themselves. Yeah, men mostly act out. Yeah, so when men are put in a corner, they mostly act out. So act out means they might become aggressive. Yes, they might use maladaptive behaviors like substance use, or it might affect their work performance, which most of the employers might take it as absenteeism from work, or they end up in risky, risk-taking behaviors. So that's how mostly how men end up externalizing the symptoms here. So more or less what we are doing here is not to feminize men, but just to educate them that some of those symptoms might be showing they have to seek either psychotherapy, or either they have to end up getting some treatment. Yeah, so you talked about what are the effective strategies to encourage men to open up this conversation, both within the personal relationships and in the broader community settings. So I think Linus mostly applying this and Dr. Nyobo, and two ways that men, we should put men in areas where they are comfortable about being men. Somebody has commented as like there's one of the comments here in the comment section that one of the men said opening up is like most of men end up in regret by opening up. It's because some of the men, what happens is you have to open up in certain ways where it's more or less male-tailored, like male-tailored communication approaches. So Linus talked about side-to-side talking compared to women face-to-face conversations. And he talked about face-to-face conversation being more intimate. And men will mostly avoid therapy. They'll mostly avoid individual therapy sessions because they're just even trying to avoid eye contact. Yeah. So men are not mostly gonna embrace that technique. So what do we do? So first of all, we want us to put men into more of like a feminine, broader environment. So what should we do here? So first of all, we encourage side to side talk, first of all. Okay. So like men up will mostly open up maybe when they're driving or when they're walking together. That's shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, so it can, that's where like men can initiate opening up. Okay, so first of all, we'll try shoulder to shoulder communication. And also men might not prefer to look vulnerable. We've talked about here man-up culture. Men can be vulnerable, yeah, but at the same time also in terms of how we encourage men to open up is first of all to collaborate, problem solving questions rather than emotional venting that most women might show. Another thing, how will men end up opening up is we'll try to incorporate physical training, mostly what we call like Mali kind of stool, many kind of setups, maybe sports, things that involve energy, you know, things like garage, things like barber shops, yeah. That's where men can more or less slowly and slowly be put into this conversation. And also, what as a society, like what as a community, should we do to just put slowly and slowly encouragement to open up? So, first of all, we should look at the like when like school programs, should encourage literacy in younger children from primary schools, from high schools. We should encourage men. Mostly, like we should incorporate schools to teach students emotional intelligence. Yeah, and also we should also go to forums like where like men dominate, like churches. We should also encourage religious leaders where men might feel comfortable. Thank you very much. Back to Patrick.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okari. Dr. Nyamyobo, this one is to you. There are these men who are struggling, but they're unsure how to articulate their feelings. They don't know where to get help. What advice would you give such kind of a man to seek help?
Yeah. So for men, as we have been discussing, most of us, is that men might end up somatizing their symptoms, to mean that they might end up showing physical symptoms of mental health challenges. So as long as that as a man or a male figure, you have noticed that you're struggling to maintain relationships, you're struggling to maintain the performance at work, you're struggling with problematic substance use, or you're struggling to to live up to your expectations and you're struggling to handle everyday stresses, just come to us as psychiatrists and psychologists, because we are still mental health and medical and medics. So we are able to understand whether all this symptomatology is evidence of a physical illness or is the evidence of lack of a mental health issue. So we need to just come to us as mental health experts so that we can help acknowledge and validate these experiences and understand that these are probably maybe mental health and medical conditions. Number two, as healthcare providers, we need to start by destigmatizing seeking help. So with such talks, it helps us understand that seeking help is not a problem and getting help is not a sign of weakness. We also need to address the common male barriers, such as what you've been just talking about, the man-up culture and that narrative, so that we can reduce the fear of judgment and vulnerability. The good thing is that the more we talk about these things, and the more it is a good and open space for us to talk. Also, finally, we need to maybe look for ways of being role models and peer supports. As I said earlier, if we are able to get champions who are able to stand up for us as men and say that, look here, men, mental health, there's no health without mental health. And if we are able to get mental health, then health is almost so let us focus on our function and performance, and also try to be better towards each other. And I think those might help us a lot in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyamiobo. At least now we'll be able to listen to Jeremiah and the psychologist on the call. So Jeremiah, maybe from where you sit as someone who is very keen on community development, do you think creating policies that protects the boy child is able to make us have a well-balanced man in terms of their mental wellness? Because I know World Vision has done a lot for the girl child. What's your perspective, Director Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick, and the panelists. I think I've quite learned a lot. And I think the discussion today is quite relevant to the need for us to talk and drive the change together. Yeah, you ask a very important question. Yeah, I work a lot with communities, and I've been in that sector for quite a long time. Yeah, and we see these issues. I think many of us are probably on this call, you are aware what has happened, especially in the aid sector, and especially to do with the NGO. Because of the US government funding cuts, and that has really affected the NGO and the work that we do, and that is really affecting the work that is happening in the communities. But it also happens that for a long time, even the aid sector have been focusing on the girl child, and therefore the boy child has appeared to be left, and has been left behind. And what we keep hearing, and also it's formed by our culture, cultural norms, and the panelists here have talked about that, where the boy child is not expected to cry. The issue of manning up is also there, that they are also supposed to be strong. And sometimes even personally, I found myself in that space. I happen to be a very emotional person, but I'm glad that early in my life, and especially after I got married, I came to learn that it's okay to cry, because I cried, and so shamefully one time I cried before my parents-in-law, and I could hear the sentiments later. How could you cry before your in-laws? That's really almost a taboo. But I've also been involved in a number of men initiatives, and one of the popular people that's the people on the call may know is Simon Bevy, who has been speaking about that real men, they need to take initiative, they need to live responsibly, they need to live sacrificially, they need to love faithfully, and they need to leave a legacy. But now you realize, as much as those are the expectations of men, they bring a lot of pressure. And if you're able to address these issues of men, it is these boys who are going to grow to men. And therefore, policies that are going to guide how we are able to address the issues of the boy child who eventually become men. I think the call is now. It's right now, it's not tomorrow, because again, the more we continue emphasizing about the girl child, the more we are creating a huge gap. And finally, the man that we are going to get in future then is under a lot of pressure and stress. Recently, a young man whom I saw grow, I saw him being born, grow, but now he has finished university. And we do remember, because the mother is our friend, the mother calling my wife and saying, my son has grown mad, actually in Natoka Mathare, But when we followed up after the guy had come from Mathare, we realized he said it's because of the pressure. I'm the firstborn boy. And, my mother has no job, my father has no job, and I'm expected to provide for my parents. I'm also expected to enter into a relationship with a girl and prove to be a man. And therefore, even as we work in the communities, and even the many organizations who are working in this sector, I think it's high time we relook, not necessarily to neglect the girl child, but for a long time, we've talked about equality and not even equity. But I think right now we need to focus more about the issue of equity and really trying to bring the boy child to be at par, because the boy child has been left behind. I think for now, those are my reflections. But yes, to answer your question, the policies are timely and the time is now.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Linus, maybe your thoughts on policies within Kenya concerning boy child?
Oh yeah, thank you, Patrick. I think we've had a groundbreaking change happening over the last couple of months. Finally, we've managed to destigmatize, I'm looking for the word, to make suicide not a crime, not to destigmatize it. Finally, suicide is no longer a crime in Kenya. And as you've known, as we've said several times, up to 80% of suicide cases are men. I think when you decriminalize suicide, that's the word I was looking for. It's a good first step in that direction. But there's so many things that we ought to do, especially in workplaces, in religious situations. But policy-wise, there's a book I read just a few months ago by a man called Jim Reeves. Jim Reeves came to the title is Of Boys and Men. It's Richard Reeves, not Jim Reeves. He came to the conclusion that, of course, with scientific finding, that male cognitive development is much slower than female cognitive development. So a 5-year-old girl is not at the same level as a 5-year-old boy. So in a sense, he was saying that a 4-year-old boy is actually at the same level as a 5-year-old girl. So that could possibly explain why kids or male children are struggling in school. And that could also explain why we are diagnosing a lot of male children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, when in most cases, these are kids who are not yet mature cognitively. So that could be it. I think when we, for example, making sure what he suggested, Richard Reeves, was that we should hold back boys a year when it comes to admitting them to schools, that we should come up with a policy because we know that we reach full cognitive maturity at the age of 25, and men tend to reach cognitive maturity at the age of around 26, then we might need to delay taking boys to school, and maybe we can do that policy-wise. That could be one of the things that we could do. Dr. Joseph also mentioned something along the lines of men being underrepresented in mental health professionals, mental health professions. For example, we haven't really done much studies in the rest part of Africa, but in South Africa specifically, the ratio between male to female mental health practitioner is somewhere between it's 80%. There's an 80% representation of female psychologists plus psychiatrists and social workers, and it's only about 20% of male mental health practitioners. So it's not that women are overrepresented, because we need enough women to handle women's issues, because we do know that women are more likely to open to female psychologists and psychiatrists, but men are underrepresented. I don't really believe in equalizing everything, but I believe that we can make sure that the proportion is enough. That I'm sure that when we have enough male mental health practitioners, then we'll have more men going to seek therapy and opening up. And this is quite clear. For example, we know that mental health issues like depression and anxiety have been known to be mostly female mental health issues, affecting mostly women. But recent studies are showing that is beginning to cross over to the other side now, beginning to predominantly affect men with internalizing conditions like depression and anxiety. Issues like body image issues or body dysmorphia, we've known them to only predominantly affect women, but it's predicted that by 2030, we'll have more men reporting with body dysmorphia than women are. And some of the areas of that body dysmorphia tends to target, especially when it comes to men, are very sensitive, and men are less likely to open up about such cases when dealing with a female mental health practitioner. So I think if we can make sure that men, we have a good proportion of mental health practitioners within the mental health industry, that will go a long way. I think something else that we could do, I'll just give you, maybe this is a bit off the question, a couple of days, a man by the name Cristiano Ronaldo is about 40 years old. He won he won a title with his country, which is Portugal. Ronaldo is very revered in the field of in the world of football. He's very successful. He's extraordinarily rich. He is also very disciplined. I think he embodies the desirable aspects of masculinity. But if you watched the celebrations of the trophy, he broke down and he was crying. So I think we need to elevate such kinds of voices and such kind of men who embody very positive aspects of masculinity. He's family oriented. He's got children. He's taking care of them very well. As far as we know, he's got one wife who, well, maybe not really a wife because they're not yet married, a partner who he takes care of well. He keeps his issues to himself. He's not on social media advertising his issues all the time. He's hardworking, but at the same time, he's also able to express himself vulnerably, to cry when he ought to cry. So I think we need to elevate such voices, and I think that will go a long way in breaking the stigma and encouraging more men to embrace the healthy side of masculinity, but to turn away aspects of masculinity that might be harmful. Like we know that men are more tilted towards physical violence than women are, and those issues need to be addressed when it comes to masculinity. So I think that's what we could say for now. Oh yeah, and in Kenya, I think for a long time the budget, the Kenyan budget has only allocated less than 1% in mental health. I think that needs to change, and it needs to change fast. When 1 in 4 Kenyans is struggling with some form of mental health issue, you cannot have less than 1% of your budget allocated for mental health. We need that has got to change, and has got to change fast. What I'm about to say might also sound very controversial, but when you mention the word gender, we always think about women. But why should gender only be about women? When we have a minister of gender or a position in parliament specifically for gender, why don't we have both a man and a woman? When about 50%, or when about 80% of suicide cases are actually perpetrated by men, are actually successfully completed by men. Why should we now? Why not start having conversations about how we could have a male representation in such kind of a place? Just recently, the government of Kenya invested something close to 100 million Kenya shillings to try to combat a problem, which is, I think they should have done that a long time ago, which is femicide. There was a rise in femicide cases in Kenya, but it did absolutely nothing to address male homicide, which is 7 times that number of female femicide. They did well to try to address femicide, but doing nothing about the killing of men, which has been consistent for more than 6 decades, where men die by homicide, 7 times that number of women. It's something that really boggles my mind, and I can't really wrap my mind around how and why the government does absolutely nothing to address that. And what you hear in social spaces is that we can't address that is because it's men killing men. Yes, it's men killing men and it's men killing women, but the men that resort to violence are only about 2% and responsible for more than 50% of all violent crimes. So it's not all men the way that is said in society. So yes, I think those are the policy changes that we could put into place and could go a long way in equalizing things and also addressing issues that are uniquely male. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Linus. For the interest of time, because I'm seeing we are remaining with 2 minutes, I will just request that we extend na dakika kama 5 ama 10 tafadhali, so that we are able to read your comments and answer some of your questions. Dr. Okari, how can we break this negative masculinity or the toxic masculinity?
Thank you very much. I think Linus has reiterated it very, very well. I think it's just more or less we should change curriculum in schools to address more in terms of emotional intelligence in young boys and in men. and also just creating well-friendly mental health spaces. He's talked about Cristiano Ronaldo, like where mostly men might feel more comfortable to open up. But I think we are yet to more or less look in what is in this like what is coming right now in terms of the digital interventions, like things like apps with man therapy or teletherapy, where men might be more comfortable to go into because it's more private. There's less stigma about it, and also we talked about the legal reforms about decriminalization of suicide, which is a big step, which is a barrier in many men trying to seek mental health distress because they thought that suicide was going to criminalize them. And then also the fact that also you talked about it's Men's Month. That's why we're here. It's Men's Mental Health Month, June, and also there's another one in November called Movember. Also, we should encourage more of these things where men feel comfortable to express themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okari. Now, Thuwain, where do you see men's mental health in the next 5 to 10 years?
Thank you for that interesting question. I think based on the conversation that we've just had, summarize the summary. If I can make just a summary, I think we will see men who, well, I hope that are more self-aware, men who are supportive. I talked about shoulder to shoulder versus face to face, right? So we need more face to face and shoulder to shoulder. It's okay to be shoulder to shoulder, but also at the same time not neglect the face to face. So a place where we can openly talk and discuss about issues that are affecting us with no judgments. I saw a question somebody asked about I do struggle with feelings that I find it hard to talk sometimes. Is this normal? So you see such questions, right? I mean, we don't have to wait until a seminar or a conference like this is where now people can open up and everything. These are questions that should be floating around, even at the workplace, at universities, where I think we also need to talk about, right? Universities right now, I think men in universities are going through tough environments based off the clientele that nobody get to see most of the times. And basically, what I would envision is just an environment where men are open and can share and discuss and access also mental health without any judgment, without any preconceived notions or shame towards this the mental health issues. So basically, just that. I think that's the only thing I can give back. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Thuwain. Dr. Nyamyobo, 5 to 10 years, where do you envision men's mental health?
Yeah, thank you. I see it on the up and up based on these efforts that are being made by mental health experts, that are being made by the government to start with, because the government has been on the forefront in coming up with guidelines, national guidelines on workplace mental health, involving religious leaders on coming up with what we call curriculum guidelines for religious leaders and how they are able to help us in the mental health circles. We are getting more to talk about it. We're also getting men who are coming to our offices. If you ask most mental health experts, they'll tell you subjectively that more and more men are coming very voluntarily to us to tell us that, hey, doc, I'm not feeling well. I need your support. So I think in the past 5 years, this seems to be an up and up motion. And I'm really grateful that I'm very excited to see what is going to come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nyamyobo. Jeremiah, 5 to 10 years, Where do you see mental health?
Well, thank you, Patrick. There is hope. I mean, from I think the submissions which are coming through, I think there is hope. There is hope for men, but that hope will not be achieved. It will come through a lot of hard work, and that hard work will come through advocacy. I think you had Linus talking about the budget that the government of Kenya, for instance, have allocated to the issues, which was being allocated less than 1%. And that kind of budget may not be able to do much because the kind of challenge that we are having is quite enormous. So the thing is, there is hope, but we have to be very deliberate. And I must laud what Chiromo Hospital Group has done, like today, bringing this awareness. And I think if this awareness can continue, not only during a men's mental awareness month like now, but this conversation to continue in different forums when there is opportunity, advocacy with parliament, advocacy with the government, and advocacy even with those people who fund programs, because for a long time, as mentioned earlier, they seem to be more skewed towards the girl child. When you also go to the banks and even the microfinance, you'll hear about loan for women. You'll also hear about women empowerment fund, but you don't hear about men empowerment fund. So this marginalization must stop. If the next 5 to 10 years are going to change for men. But I really want to say there is hope because the awareness has started coming, and it's coming like the initiative that we have today and for the days to come. I think when that continues, then I think we are going to change the narrative, and we are going to have a better society where the boy child and the men are more respected, and they can go back to the role that they were expected to play in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah, for that. Because now I think we've given a very good summary in terms of the 5 to 10 years, what we expect. I just want to go to the comment section, and I think we'll read it back to back with the help of Robbins and Felix. So I'll read the first one from Leonard Mbele. I think it's tough for most men to open up because mostly it does not end well. So we adapt and live with it to avoid it worsening by getting words that diminish masculinity. Then from Peter Okwanyo, are there reliable studies showing the major causes of depression in men? I will comfortably say yes. There are studies that show cases of depression in men. So I guess after this, we'll be able to share. Maybe later on, we'll share some of the studies. Then we have Mike saying, nothing is more powerful than sharing from a lived experience. I just returned from a week-long retreat focused on men's healing. It is for fathers that had lost their sons. We cried, we learned new coping tactics and strategies that foster healing and openness. Some opened up for the first time in years. The environment that was necessary for us to come together was established through bonding activities that fostered trust. Thank you very much, Mike, for being candid that people cried, especially men, during this particular retreat. I'll read the last one, then I'll ask Felix to read some. I'll read one from Job Ogutu. Are there any associations with substance use and mental health in men? What is the place of traditional masculinity and societal expectation of men in matters mental health? I'll ask maybe Dr. Nyamiobo to take that question. Utajibu hiyo swali ya Job. Felix, you can read for us the next comments.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So I'll read a comment from Mike Kategaya. So he's saying, I salute you guys to facilitating this stuff, but much needed conversations. Kudos to those who took time and courage to attend this virtual meeting. And Alex Mwangi is saying, in matters relationship, women tend to want to initiate ideas for both men and leave the ball on the man's court. This sometimes isn't in line with what the man wants at that time. So the man wants to secure the bag for what the lady needs, then lead well. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, Dr. Okari, you will take that. You can read the next one, Felix.
Okay, so then I'll read from Martin. Martin is saying, opening up is key and regular awareness creation, especially at the workplaces, churches, etc. And also Alex is saying, where do we draw the line between stingy and just really trying to evade unnecessary spending as a man?
Jeremiah, you'll take that one. Where do we draw the line?
Then
carry on.
Then this is, I believe, Rashid saying, good evening. I'm grateful for this session because many a time we speak for men, but today I'm hearing it from the horse's mouth. How I wish we could get a summary of those points noted down for future references. So I think Patrick will also guide on that.
All right. Robbins, you can take us through the other comments kindly.
Okay, I'll start with Peter. Peter is saying that the fact is that women lost their place and are struggling and favored in the earning field. How do I marry a woman for her qualities, then abandons my children to a house help, whose qualities we do not know? It is sad. Then we have
Robbins, before you carry on,
we have GK.
When you'll pick that question from Peter Combo about qualities and the sadness of it.
Okay, we have GK here making a reference to what Linus had shared. He was asking if he could address the point he had mentioned in man issues. Why is Ronaldo not married to his long-term partner? We have GM. GM is saying thanks very much for the important life lessons on mental health for men. I have really benefited. We have CZ here. Most men exist, but they do not live. They distract themselves with entertainment, vices, and fake ambitions. And he is asking, when was the last time you sat down and truly asked yourself, what kind of, sorry, I think I lost that point. Sorry, I forgot. I don't know if somebody can see it in Ipotelea. But when was the last time you sat down and truly asked yourself, what kind of a man
do I want?
I've lost the last. Patrick, maybe if you see it,
okay,
maybe
I'll read it
do the last part. I've lost it.
All right, when was the last time you sat down and truly asked yourself, what kind of a man do I want to be? The world does not need more spectators, it needs builders. Thank you very much, Mwangi, for that very deep question. There's a comment from Catherine Modoni. Thank you very much, Catherine, for joining in. Catherine says, I'm not a man and I'm here to learn more about how I can support the men in my life. Thank you very much, Catherine. While my experiences are different, I think a lot more needs to go in support, also from a cultural and tribal perspective. The statistic speaks to a general population of men when it comes to suicide, but has there been any work done to try to understand socioeconomic and geographical statistics to then tailor make more targeted solution? Dr. Nyamyobo, you'll take that. You'll give a comment on the general population about suicide based on the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics research that was done. All right, so I guess we'll answer the questions, then we'll do the survey as led by Justus, then we call it a day. Karibuni to the panelists. You can answer the questions that I directed to you.
Thank you, Patrick. Maybe I can start because maybe I didn't have many questions, just one question. I think that came from Alex Mwangi. And probably we need to give an award to Alex. He's been very active on the chats, but he's also asking very hard questions. On the other hand, I think the question that you did allocate to me was, where do we draw the line between stingy and just really trying to evade unnecessary spending as a man? Yeah, I think this is a question that could have different dimensions that you can be able to approach it. But perhaps I will need to approach it from maybe a personal experience, and maybe it's experience I should have. There are things I would have learned maybe earlier when I was a bit younger, probably in my 20s. It would have been more helpful, but it's never too late to learn something new. But yeah, I think the borderline is gray. But I would really want to say that it's important as a man that you invest a bit in financial literacy and about being able to know that even to say no, it's enough, and it's a full sentence, and it's enough. But I think the challenge that we find ourselves, and I was trying to scroll through my phone, just looking at how many WhatsApp group right now I am in. Either one is a WhatsApp for hospital bills, another one is for wedding, another one is just for different reasons. And the fact that as men, we do not even make any budgets so that anything that comes goes. And therefore, you find yourself spending very unnecessarily, because I think it's okay. I think just to say that maybe for this particular month, unless it's really a very critical issue, I'm only going to devote around maybe 10 to 15,000 shillings, and that's the much I can be able to give. And beyond that, as long as something is not within my budget for my family, or if you're not married, it's really a budget about the things that you really need to do, then you don't have to really give. And you don't have to feel guilty about it, because many times we find ourselves in this group, but because pressure, and as men tunataka kujichocha, unataka kujionyesha ni mwanaume, so ni ngapi umetoa and all that. And finally, you find yourself really unnecessary spending, and you end up in debt. And lastly, Patrick, I know we don't have time, and I'm just trying to emphasize the issue of financial literacy. Recently, there are some guys in Kenya, they are called Centonomy 101, and they run financial literacy courses. I happened to attend like 5 years ago, and they were launching their program in Uganda. So I decided, okay, and because they were doing an awareness and it was a free session, I went, and the participants were around 400. And I will shock you, the men in that hall, we were around 30. So, and this continues to widen the divide between how women are investing themselves in chamas, in financial literacy, whereas men, we shall continue lamenting and complaining that actually women are advancing, but we are not doing anything about it. Either we have been so intimidated and we have been put in a corner, and it's high time. As men, we wake up, let's invest in ourselves, whether it's in education, whether it's in financial literacy, so that you can be able to reach a point and say, I'm not being stingy, but really this is what I can devote to this particular thing. But we are finding ourselves as men in debt so that we can be able to service the lifestyle of women. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Dr. Nyamyobo?
Yes, thank you. I'll start with the question from Job on substance use disorders and mental health in men. Yeah, as we discussed earlier, it is very clear amongst men that, for example, in a study done by Kenya, there was a survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics in 2022 and World Health Organization that 6% of people in Kenya struggle with substance use, especially alcohol use disorder. That is 6%. And in that population, out of 11 people, 10 men are the ones who are struggling with substance use. So most of this substance use and alcohol use has been targeted amongst men. And most of the reasons would be out of the fact that men use it to cope to mental health challenges. So a man may struggle with anxiety or depression or PTSD or any other mental health issue, bipolar mood disorder or ADHD, and they end up using alcohol as a coping mechanisms. And that ends up being the symptomatology that they present with. So a woman will present with crying spells, or they present with feelings of worthlessness or hopelessness as a symptom of depression, but a man will just present with the problematic alcohol use as a symptom of depression. So that in its way shows that for us men, substance and alcohol use is a primary or a secondary presentation for our mental health challenges. When it comes to the second question by I don't remember the name, but it was around suicide and its socio-geographical manifestation. It is clear to us that when it comes to mental health issues, other than by the biological aspects of mental health issues, there are usually psychosocial issues around it. So, for example, not in Kenya, but an Australian study done in 2023 showed that people living in a lower socioeconomic status had more death by suicide, almost twice or even more, than people living in a higher socioeconomic status. Another one also done by the National Institute of Health also reported the same, that in men, people who are in a lower socioeconomic positions end up having overrepresentation in suicide statistics and at a higher risk of non-fatal suicide thoughts and behaviors. So these studies are less, and that is a challenge to us as healthcare providers to be more proactive in doing studies amongst men so that you can also understand men more. And because we are aware that 3/4 of suicide attempts are women, but 3/4 of suicide death by suicides are men. So men might try suicide, might have lower suicide attempts, but have higher suicide deaths. Yeah, so that is all I have from the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nyamiobo. Dr. Okari?
Oh, thank you very much, Patrick. I think, okay, the question raised was more roles in relationships. I think he pointed out that this is a woman who more or less is coming up with ideas, proposals, and then the man takes the proposals but usurps everything and just more or less does not integrate what the woman wants. So more or less this is more of role confusion. Yeah, it's more of what are the man roles, what are the woman roles, and at the same time, the whole discussion that we are discussing is we're not promoting what you call masculinity avoidance disorder. Yeah, we're talking about men. We're talking about how man-up culture has been pervasive, like how man-up culture has been counterproductive in terms of mental health. But we are not trying to make men we're not trying to make men not to still be men. Yeah, so more or less we are trying to the whole thing about man-up culture is transforming men into authentic men. Yes, like they should not become passive, and they should not at the same time, because there's another phenomenon where now men are guilty. Yeah, they're now guilty of becoming men because of the fear of discrimination, because of the guilt that men might be invoking, paying to females. Yeah, so what we should do in this this scenario, mostly with the visitor psychologist, we do like cognitive reframing. Just try and identify the emotions, and we try also just to address and roll with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Okari. Last but not least, Thuwain.
Yes, thank you. I don't quite remember the question that was assigned, but I see an interesting question here that is talking about addressing job loss as a man. I think it's important, and maybe if you permit me, I can address this question, Patrick.
You can address it, Thuwain. Carry on.
All right, thank you. So this is a question that normally we always get, and it's always struggling. It's always a struggle for men because the societal pressure of providing is always there on our backs, right? Wherever we go, the focus is always how can I improve my life? How can I improve my family's life? How can I improve my parents' life? How can I improve? So it's always this question of me trying to validate my efforts towards improving other people's lives and even sometimes our own. But the discrepancy comes when there is this denial, right? And sometimes there is this lack of acknowledgement that job loss is actually a loss, right? So that it is actually, it can bring about emotions similar to somebody who just lost a partner or a parent or a brother or somebody who's been close, because we see the same manifestation of symptoms. So with that, acknowledging that this is a valid is something that we normally experience through life. These are things that can happen, just like grief. You need to grieve that process from the beginning. Okay, so accept that moment. That okay, so yes, it seems that I have lost my job, and this, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the repercussion behind that, and therefore now with that acceptance gives your brain a chance to process or generate solutions towards solving that problem. Most of the times we are in denial, you start blaming yourself, you start blaming others, you start looking for excuses, just trying to run away from the acceptance part of it, which is the most important part of the beginning, right? So it always that acceptance part is where it's mostly important. I wanted to emphasize on that. And then number two, I think, is always once you've accepted, now you can now generate, as I mentioned before, create that space for you to generate solutions. Okay, so now that I've accepted this, what can I have? What are my strengths as an individual, right? What are my support systems? Okay, maybe faith for you is a strong is a support or a source of strength. Maybe family is a source of strength. Maybe your partner is a source of strength. Use that to your advantage. Okay, use that as your source of force that will guide you and that will push you towards now creating much more solutions. So hey, I think I can see that right now. Maybe opening, sometimes even open up. There's some men who also don't open up to their partners, to their families, that they lost a job because of fear of the repercussions, fear of the judgments, fear of everything that will come across with that. So with that, once you've accepted, um, identified your strengths, identified your sources of support, communicate with them, and then have that feedback, right? Okay, so this is where I am right now. This is what has happened. What do you propose? I have this idea. What do you think? Processing that session or processing that information together with your support system is also another vital step. And once you get through this stage, you find yourself now gaining that momentum, seeing the positive out of where now maybe okay, now that I'm in this position, should I change my career? Should I focus on this? Maybe it's time I set up my own business. Maybe it's time I do this. What can I research? What can I add? What led to me actually losing this? If it was something that maybe it was you caused, it's something that was caused by you. If it was not something that was in your control, then okay, so how can I improve so that I don't find myself in this similar situation in the future? So you see, all this is based off of what? Of a place of acceptance, where you've accepted the situation at hand, and therefore now you have the space and the mental capacity for you to process the information and generate solutions. So I think that was, I saw that it was maybe a question that was valid, and I think I understand this place, and therefore people have to catch that point of acceptance towards a better self, right? So I hope that answers the question, and
Thank you very much, Suwain, for picking up that question. Mwangi is giving us a punchline, which is very powerful. He says, a man should never seek validation from the world. The moment you do, you hand over your power. Validate yourself through actions, your discipline, and the man you are becoming. Earn your own respect first. The world's approval is just a byproduct. Thank you very much, Mwangi, for that. And for now, I want to pass it to Robbins to tell us about how can we check our mental wellness as men. Robbins, karibu.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So for the men who are in this webinar, we have shared a link. By clicking on that link, we can be able to get to do some assessments, which will enable us to know where we are. So when you click on that link, you'll get 5 different assessments that you can be able to do. So using the link, you can be able to do an assessment for anxiety. We have an assessment for depression. We have an assessment checking on the level of burnout. We also have an assessment there for PTSD, for in case you have ever gone anything through any form of trauma and you want to know if you're able to overcome it or you're still struggling with it. Then finally, we have an assessment on substance use. And here in particular is on alcohol, so that you may be able to know if you are going towards an addiction, dependence on use of alcohol. So we encourage each one of us to take our time so that we can be able to click on this link, be able to do it. And the important thing to note as we are doing this assessment, be as honest to yourself and genuine, so that as you do the assessment, you're able to reply these questions with total honesty, so that you can be able to get the results that can assist you. So thank you so much, and asanteni sana for attending. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Robbins, for that. Last but not least, Justus, you did the survey. The survey, people have filled it. You might give us their responses, then we call it a night. If by any case you have the results ready. Justus?
Yeah, sure. Patrick, I did, but I can ask your permission. Can we do this individually? We can, if it's okay with the team, we can follow up on each response separately from this conversation. If that's okay with you.
That's okay, Justus.
Okay, sure. Then, okay, thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, in this particular call, we really appreciate giving us your 1.5 hours. We don't take it for granted. I've looked into the participants. At our highest, we are around 120. And still on the call, there are other psychiatrists on the call. I've seen Dr. Chibanda. I think I've seen Dr. Janesh. So thank you very much for joining in. And as we continue with this particular month, let us embrace the talk. Let us embrace the face-to-face conversation as compared to shoulder. And let us keep this conversation going so that at the end of the day, we allow men to open up, we allow men to speak, because it's not from a point of weakness, but it is from a point of strength that men do talk. Thank you very much, and have yourselves a lovely evening. And as Jeremiah said, we need more and more of these forums for men. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.